What's the big idea?
We're doing intros too?
Well, no, just quick,
Okay.
like who we
Okay.
We have to edit all this fucking shit.
Right.
So welcome to the first episode of Volleyballogy, the show for every parent, player, coach, and
The podcast for every player, coach, and parent.
yeah, the podcast, yeah, because there's going to be more to this. I'm Zuby.
I'm Erik.
And I'm Meach.
And today we're here to talk about an issue that I think is timely for the time of year. Basically, this episode is called Good Coach, Bad Coach. So we're just going to talk about qualities of great coaches and really bad coaches that we've all had. We're all former players, coaches. I'm a volleyball parent now, so I've lived through all aspects of it. Also have volleyball organizational experience, just working with organizations and on the business side. So yeah, we're just going to talk, and hopefully you gain some knowledge from the show. And we have a whole other series of skill videos that are coming out, and beach and indoor videos for parents, players, and coaches. One of the gaps we feel is that parents don't get involved enough in this process. So educating parents is a big part of it.
Yeah,
and
they're kind of kept out. What opportunity does a parent have to to learn about good coaches, unless they were a former volleyball player or something, right? And they know of some big coaches that get like Coach Cry in there. But then it almost sucks because if you're one of those parents and you are watching his videos, you kind of feel powerless at practice because you can't change this coach's mind or whatever, right?
Well, that's where we hope that we can. The videos are for everybody, so we're hoping coaches will watch it with an open mind and understand, like, from high level players and coaches. And we do call ourselves Volleyballogy because of the logic built into what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And because the more, if you have only a few parents of like a club team, 14 girls club team, if you only have a few parents, like 10% of them that actually know the sport well, they'll feel powerless because they can't. But you know what I mean, to talk about the sport, to go more in depth or whatever. But the more parents on that team that actually know the thing, then the conversation can just bounce around a lot more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, hopefully we can reach more people by doing this, right?
Especially if it is where you're a parent that is a first-time generation. Your kid has adapted or has liked the game, and
like first-time generation, nothing. Like volleyball coach or like into volleyball.
Yes, exactly. Like you're a coach, you're a parent that has your child really liking the sport, but you never were into it.
Yeah,
and that's kind of where we can.
That's the big difficulty. Yeah,
we hope.
Yeah.
We hope.
Yeah, well, that's the bulk of parents, right? The bulk of parents you see. No, that's okay. No, the bulk of parents in club, they didn't play, right? So they're looking at something they don't know, and then the parents that did play are banging their heads against the wall because I mean, the big issue in this topic really is that the numbers of players have gone through the roof, and there's not enough coaches to keep up with the demand, right? So that's the big problem, that there's not enough high quality coaches to coach the number of kids that are playing. And there's like a ton of kids that get cut that are really good players.
Yeah.
And some clubs are adding third teams, fourth teams. But what that's doing is it's diluting the coaching, or not diluting, it's diminishing the coaching pool, right? So you may have 3-4 really great coaches in a club, and then the rest are volunteer parents who've never played before. So I think what we're building here is something that every part of the volleyball community can understand, and it's giving a voice primarily, I think, to parents who don't have a voice, because nobody wants to be the parent. You could be a former professional player, a high level player like us, and then go to a club, and you don't want to be that parent. Like I never liked coaching my own kids. I like them to do their own thing. I taught them when they were young, but I was always looking forward to having a club coach for them. But then you go there, and then it's just the wrong advice, wrong mindset. And you don't want to be that parent walking up going, yeah, I was watching practice and, I just had a few comments about, you don't want to, so it's very intimidating to be that parent too. So this will be a nice outlet, I think, for those parents.
And for them, but also the player and coaches as well, right? Even though maybe not as many. I don't expect like 14U players to maybe watch or listen to this, but maybe they will, maybe through their parents, but hopefully what we're saying, because they're like, I'm sure players are going to have a lot to relate, and coaches as well, right? We've all run into the coaches who like who they might say things in a one-on-one conversation, but in the club environment they can't, because we were talking about this earlier, and they're afraid to speak out because it might compromise their position in the.
But we can speak out. So
right. Yeah. Hopefully with
that's why the uncensored name, right? Because we so my experience too.
We're not here to shit talk. Just
no, we don't want to like, that's the thing. We don't want to name a lot of names, and we don't want to. But like I've worked with volleyball organizations, like governing bodies, and I've worked with coaches, and I've worked with parents and players, and every one of those groups has a lot to say about the coaching problem. But not many people are going to say it publicly because they don't want to undermine the volunteer. Like, let's be honest, a lot of them are volunteers. Yeah, that's awesome. Right, so we're grateful for that.
Right.
But I have a problem when volunteers overstep their boundaries or don't know their limitations, don't know what they don't know.
It sounds like
they become like tyrants almost.
Yeah, these volunteer coaches almost use that as a way to, hey, you can't. I'm here out of the goodness of my.
That
givingness.
can happen.
How dare you? Talk back to how I'm running things here, or it's like, fine, you want to? I'll just leave or something like that. Maybe some of them do it. Remember, I think did we have a few club coaches that just bailed like halfway through the season type thing on? Was it when your girls were playing? Remember that Durham coach? Weren't they like 14 or 15U? That's at the time when we were helping. We were trying to help them out. We came in to do clinics, and some of them responded well.
No, they didn't bail. That was when the coach was forbidding the players to try 14U girls. They were forbidden to try spin serving, and even in nothing games. So it was So
I swear,
parents and players have been quitting. But
I'm sure that's happened though. Coaches have left.
Yeah,
through a season.
Yeah, I mean, but in some ways that would be a blessing. I think that's the problem, is that coaches stick around for years, and they stick around with the same group of girls, and they move up with them, or they stick around with the club. And the problem is that they just don't really know that they don't know, and they don't ask for help, right? Because the ego kicks in. Like I've seen some coaches who won't ask for help from people who know better. Yeah. Or people who won't ask someone else to come in because what they've told the girls for like 6 months or 3 months is wrong. Yeah. And they're afraid that the new person's going to come in and undo that. So at the end of the day, so when a parent complains or a player complains, it gets put into the spoiled culture, toxic culture parent. That's a toxic parent. It's from our entitled society, but there's no place for someone to challenge a coach, because if you do, then you're put in that box, and that's
and you could be actually looking at your child receiving punishment because of it.
That's huge. Yeah. Yes.
Or less playing time or something. Yeah. So as a parent, you're probably aware of that. Like, if I speak up, they might,
there's
they might take it out on my kid.
There's a consequence, and I don't even know if it's that it's just there's such a fear among club parents of being that parent. Mm-hmm. And even if they're the most knowledgeable, open-minded parent there is, if they see something going on that's not not productive, not helpful, that's productive. Productive's the word, right? Like there are productive things and non-productive things. I mean, Karch Karai talks about that. I love that when he talks about that's not a productive thought. There are also things, one of the other things I love about what he says is that and I always used to say this too, if you can't answer the why, right? So many coaches cannot answer the why. So if you're a coach that's telling your players to serve receive on the attack line, and someone says like, why? Like, what about the balls over our heads? Well, you got to move. Well, why? Wouldn't it be more logical to just stand a little deeper? So the why is a big one. Coaches who can't answer why to themselves need to look at
that's what big doing. And what you mentioned earlier, they're afraid to bring other people in because they've said this is the way this thing works. And
they're trapped.
And they're not confident in it. Yeah, because again, they're not answering the question why. And then if you bring in like an outside organization, like what we used to do with the coaching clinics, and then we come in and then we're challenging that, what are they going to do? What you should do is you should just be humble, right? That's humility, right? And then humility, from that comes growth. So I guess
just to I believe, because we've mentioned it twice already. Just if you could kind of give a little idea of who Karch Karai is for those parents that might not know.
Yeah, good point. For parents, that's where we are. See, that's a great one. If you're a parent or a player, part of the reason why we want to do this show is to educate people about, volleyball history. And Karch Karai is widely considered to be the greatest volleyball player who ever lived. He's only 6'2", so small by today's standards, but he had like a 45, 47-inch vertical. And he's the only player.
Crazy.
Yeah, only player to win beach indoor gold twice, and then he won on the beach as a player gold volleyball, the first ever gold volleyball and beach volleyball at the Olympics in 1996, and then he has now recently won gold as the indoor head coach of the women's national team, and that's the beauty of Karch Karai. He plays for the United States. And out of California himself. He was a college player. Started out on beach when he was 13 years old. Played his first adult tournament with his dad.
Started as a beach
player. I think he was 11. Yeah, I think he played his first beach tournament with his father when he was 11. His father was a national team player in Hungary. And so, just consider. But the beauty of Karch Karai is that despite all of his accomplishments, he remains so humble. Right, and that's what makes him great, is his humility. That's what made him a great player, and it also makes him a great coach, because he has that ability to be humble and open and listen. But he also is very adamant when he knows something's wrong, and I've seen his frustration sometimes in things where there's the popular idea that's out there on YouTube and circulating, and he knows it's wrong, and he'll say that has never been told to me. So a lot of his stuff, if you watch some of his coaching information, a lot of it is undoing a lot of the just quote unquote non-thinking stuff that just becomes fact over time that is not true. Like, I hear coaches all the time when we go into gymnasiums a lot as part of what we do, and not just as a parent, but as an organization where we train other players and we train coaches too.
And that active correction is what's missing.
Well, you just see all the time that coaches are just going off of the latest YouTube video, and it's gone viral, and then it just becomes fact. So I can predict it. I can see a video that's online that is gained a lot of views, and then you'll see everybody talking in the same cliche, everybody's coaching the same idea. Like, I've corrected coaches before. I'm like, that's not, I know that YouTube video's out there, but that's not good, and here's why it won't work. So, I mean, the why is such a big part of it, and Karch is a big proponent of that.
Yeah, like if there's no review of these this new trend or whatever of coaching style, if it's just like put out there and people see it and then just like they're or inherently believe it or something, there's no analysis of it. Who's checking it? And then all of a sudden the next person sees it because of the viral activity of social media.
That's
next
right.
coach sees it, and then they all do it, but no one's actually stopping and pausing, being like, "Wait,
well,
does this work?"
Yeah, what? Yeah.
Well, that's
terrible. The whole act of correction is it seems to be missing or whatever. Right?
Well, that's where it has to be players. Like, it has to be high level players to come in to say that won't work at the highest level. Right?
Yeah.
Coaches keep coaching for the level the players are at, and that is not helpful, right? I've coached against teams at the young, so I like to coach the youngest age groups because I like to teach fundamentals. I think more high-level coaches should open themselves up to doing that, because it's kind of useless to take them at the end. But so I've coached against 13U teams, where 13-year-old players, where the team was just bumping it from 6. That's the back court middle to the front court middle, position 3. The position 3 would set back court 6 middle. Player in 6 would stay on the ground and just volley it or bump it over right into our pot.
This was a drill?
This
what was the point?
This was a tournament game.
Oh, this was a game.
That's how they played. So they serve received, pass. Everybody would pass to the middle.
And the middle.
And the middle would just set the player in backcourt 6, backcourt middle, and that player would either volley or bump it or smack it over.
Oh, wow.
And it would land in our pot because we were teaching 6 back, teed up defense, blocking, and all this stuff, right? And we were talking about free balls too. But they found success. And, our team, I said to our team, okay, so we could adapt. We could abandon our system right now. And we took a timeout. We said we could abandon the system and win, against this team. Or we can keep practicing the system, take the loss, if there is a loss, and then you guys will be better players in the long run, and this team will be nowhere. And, that's what happened. Over those clubs in the next couple of years, it wasn't even close. That club was still doing that the next year, and everybody had passed them,
Right. Yeah.
So that's the thing. It needs a player, because if people want, and this is the good coach, bad coach thing. This is number one, I think, on the list. If we're going to start into this, I think we already have.
Yeah.
The number one thing that I think, and the difference between a good coach and a bad coach, is a good coach understands that a win is making every player a better player and person by the end of the season.
First and foremost.
Every player.
Yes.
And a bad coach wants the win. A bad coach wants the medal. I'm talking in the junior ranks. You go to post-secondary and above, then you're going for wins. But even then, in a sport where players peak at 28, I don't know about you guys, compare your 28-year-old selves to your 19-year-old selves or 18-year-old selves. Not even close. You're so much better at 28. So parents, players out there right now listening, remember that volleyball players peak at around age 28. So if your kid's 14 or 15, and
same with women's, right?
Same with women too.
Or is it a bit?
No, it's about the same. It's a late 20. It's a late sport. That's why we don't. If you think about it, volleyball, doesn't start till you're age 12, right? Compared to 4.
For men's, definitely 28. Women might be maybe a year or 2 before that.
It could be. Yeah. There is. Yeah, but generally speaking, it's sort of acknowledged.
I don't know. I could totally be wrong with that.
Yeah, if you go watch pro women's volleyball, and for women, it's a little more difficult because they have to make that choice of family, marriage,
mentally. Definitely the same, obviously. The age, it's just
men are given more freedom to pursue it. Definitely, that's the thing. But the point is, so if you have a kid who's 14 or 15 and their coach is benching them because they're not going to help them win a gold medal, just think about that. Because I don't know how many great players have quit the sport. We have stories, right? Meach, you want to tell a story of a friend of ours from high school?
Wait, before you do,
okay, sure.
That principle of the objective is to, at the end of each game, each player should be getting better.
Each season.
That doesn't matter whether it's pro, Team France coach or 12U coach.
I think it matters. I think it matters for pros. I think it matters. Once you get
when you're pro level as well,
I think
you still want to show improvement, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I'm just saying that pillar of coaching doesn't change no matter at any level.
Agreed. Yeah. I just think that sometimes, you're in situations where money's on the line and there's real jobs and there's...
It would still be there, but I guess it's not as high a priority.
Well, I think because
when there's money on the line...
Yeah.
Money. You have to get sponsorships.
And if you're what I think is that a lot of amateur coaches or youth coaches like to pretend and play professional coach. Right? They sit around keeping stats because that's what they see on TV. And they like to throw the clipboard because that's what they see good coaches do on TV. They're all playing dress up.
That's just ridiculous.
Your job there is to give every kid a chance to play. Because we know, I know from my life story, I've seen friends, I've seen other teammates in my life, I've seen kids that are sitting at the end of the bench and they're going to quit. Yeah. And you know what's funny? You don't know if that kid's going to be the superstar. A kid at 15 who's the phenom is almost never the phenom at 25.
We know plenty of those.
Well, this research is out there, right? The phenom doesn't happen aside from the Wayne Gretzky's, the Karch Karai's, the Michael Jordans. Even Michael Jordan wasn't, right? Michael Jordan was not a phenom when he was 15. That doesn't exist. It's the myth in everybody's head that, oh my God, I'm going to play these kids because they're amazing. But then there's a kid at the end of the bench who you don't know could turn into something amazing. That's what I was going to say. Meach, you want to tell a story about our friend in high school?
Well, maybe if you want to develop it a little bit more.
Okay, it was a dark and stormy.
Sure.
Develop. What do you mean?
Like how he went about about developing and how he went about taking more of that.
Well, you know more than I do.
Well, let's say, for example, if I believe you're speaking of a certain
Same
person,
guy?
Yes.
the worst guy on our team,
When you guys are at grade 9 or grade 10? Sorry, I'm
This
cutting
was
off.
grade 11.
Oh, grade 11. Okay.
Grade
Grade 11. Yeah, we had a strong high. So back then, this is in our part of the world, club volleyball was new. We're pretty old. So, we were playing on dirt floors, and the volleyballs were actually made of stone.
Actually,
Still have the marks. So high school volleyball was it. Like it was the place to play, and yeah.
I was I kind of got my experience of just hearing that club existed. It was something that was kind of foreign because, there was no outside volleyball source. There was no different avenue that that we could go to.
Yeah.
I was really, really shocked to hear that kind of existed. And my buddy and I were actually looking to get some other source of volleyball aside from, the high school thing. This individual in particular was playing volleyball in our high school, and until he got into the club game, until he got into going to camps, he was that guy that was the bench warmer.
Yeah.
But he was always motivated.
So were you guys starters on your high school team? And this guy was chilling on the bench. He wasn't started, right?
He was pretty much chilling on the bench.
Yeah.
And until he got that chance to learn the game, to kind of to experience the game in a positive way, he turned out, I guess, ultimately to be one of the best players, in this region. But it wouldn't have been known unless he got that chance. And if he had been dismissed, if he had been not given that chance, then nothing would have developed.
And it's almost lucky that, because there's players that were probably in the same situation as him who probably got out of the sport, but he, for whatever reason, decided to stay in it a bit longer and in a way held out, waited for that opportunity to play, right? And then because he obviously practiced with you guys, and so he was able to light it up and show his skill in practice, but coach decided still not to play him in high school.
It took a while
or did he all of a sudden just get better?
He wasn't one of the people that was naturally good,
right?
That was a development thing.
Right.
So there could have been a point where he could have left the game,
right,
or stayed in it. It was very, very teeter-totter.
Yeah.
But luckily he stayed in it.
Yeah.
And that was to his credit, obviously, and to volleyball's credit to stay within it.
So what was his debut? Was it in high school, or did he have to wait until he got into club and then he got to experience, he experienced practice, but he never got to experience competition and playing? So did he first do that in high school or club?
The part of the story, though, that I think is the killer one, so to answer that too.
Yeah.
So the tournament, we had a tournament where we didn't lose a game the whole tournament. And it was our end of year championship. It was I guess you'd call it state or area regional championship, and we won that by not losing a set, and we blew everybody away, and he didn't touch the court.
That's brutal.
Our coach was a high school teacher who was coaching, so unpaid, didn't know anything about the game, which was good, and she let the players sort of dictate things, but she always would dictate the subs. But it was weird that he sat at the end of this bench. That's the story that always breaks my heart, is that this guy sat at the end of the bench. He probably loved volleyball even more than any of us, right?
I'm sure.
And but that was grade 11, and then he went to local development camp, one of those paid for things, and he came back and he was like our best player the next year.
Mm-hmm.
and
So he did it in an off season.
He did it in an off season paid thing, which is another thing that we're doing here is we want to make sure that everybody can access this stuff. So we're going to do these videos, right? So people, no matter what socioeconomic background they're from, they can get some quality, at least instruction, right? But he came back and he lit it up, and then he went on to play varsity sports and post-secondary and, a great player. So that was my early indication and early lesson in that, that player sitting at the end of your bench. One, I mean, he was so, I don't know if you remember that, but he was so sad. He was, if it were a different time, I think that guy would quit, right? This is pre-internet, pre-smartphone.
For sure.
He would have quit for sure today.
There's a ton of players in that situation happening right now who are quitting or have quit
I always tell players that like 90% of the success in this is not quitting. Like if you stick around long enough and keep working, just by sheer, people falling off, people giving up, attrition, you will be. Yeah. And if you keep working mixed with their quitting, you talk to a lot of pro players today, they'll be the first ones to tell you like, I just didn't stop. Right? Yeah. And I was telling you, Eric's playing high level beach now with his partner, and I was telling you guys like that's just the decision that those guys made, right? Like you decide to do it and
put more time into it.
And it's like just a basic law of nature. The more you do something, the better you're going to be.
Yeah. Yes.
And but coaches need to remember that when they're talking about playing time too, right? Like I love it when the self-fulfilling failure, right? Where they put a kid in to play at some moment and then the kid messes up because they never play. And then the kid gets benched. Because that kid messed up just like I thought they would. It's like a you're reaffirming your own bias. I'll put this kid into serve at a critical time, even though I've never done this before. Oh, of course they missed their serve. So you've ruined the kid's confidence, set them up for failure, which is another really bad coaching quality. And then you punish them more for the failure that you set them up for.
A good coach can also, I suppose, use that, knowing that they may have a high chance of failing by putting them in a clutch moment, but they can. And if the kid does fail, but if it is a good coach, they want to use that as a positive experience, right? When they come back to it, right? High pressure situation, but if in the case of a bad coach, they put him in and they bomb that situation, they're not going to put him in the next time, and then it's just like negative feedback loop.
It's the value they place on winning.
Yeah, and right. So what we're getting now into what a good coach does and how it's, Meach and I were talking about one of our coaches in our past who coached both of us. One great quality about him was that he gave a lot of playing time to everyone, and he was very aware. Like when we were up 25-10 on a team, he would sub the whole team up, put the bench 25-12. Sorry, if we were up 20-12 or something, he would sub out the whole.
Yeah, that's something I'm not seeing a lot these days too. Coaches' awareness of.
We did that at a high level as well. We did that when I was at university. Yes. And I was in my rookie year. Actually, in one situation, this was awesome. About we were playing Mac. Right, I think they were one of the top teams. That was when I was at Ryerson, and I think it was like us, Mac, and I forget who else. We win the first set, starters, right? Second set, starters just start to choke, like whatever. And then just he made a few subs, and then we lose the second set. But he was so disappointed with, I don't know, disappointed. I'm not the coach. I don't know if that's the right. I don't know if that's what he was feeling. But come third set, puts the bench on, right? So that's when I started to get to play a lot. Anyways, we're so hyped up. We go out there and we just go at them, and then sure enough we win the set, right? Just because we're so amped up to play, whatever. And then he just leaves us on for the fourth, the bench, and then we end up winning the game 3-1 or something, right? Kind of crazy. And it was such a. And then the good thing was that the starters really appreciate it as well, and then it just builds the whole team up from there, right? Yep. Yeah. Really, really great opportunity.
Faith shown in players gets them to play way better. If somebody believes in them, I know it sounds so cliche, but if somebody believes in a player, and that was the one thing. I remember working with young kids too. So many coaches would tell me, "Oh, they can't overhand serve; they're too weak or they're too young," and I'm like, what are you talking about? It take 2 practices to get them to do it. And,
Yeah.
and I always tell players too, they all say, oh, I can't do that. I can't jump serve. I can't do this serve. I can't hit. I can't do whatever. And I'm like, I always tell them to throw a yet at the end of that because like, you know,
Yeah.
and if you never do it, I always tell this to coaches too. Like, so if that player never does this, okay, let's suppose they're a 14-year-old kid who can never overhand serve in a game. When are they supposed to get better? Like, if you never let them serve in a game, if you never let them take the risk in a game, so you're just ensuring that that player will never develop that skill. Or my favorite is when they work on it in practice, and then they tell the kids not to do it in a game. I'm like, so you want them to never, you want to increase the gap between their belief about practice and games, right? You want them to think of games as up here and something that we don't do these things in.
I mean,
you just do that in practice.
Major well-known philosophies touch on this, like Buddhism. They say, you know, to be in the moment, right? So, like, why would you treat that practice moment any different than a game?
Yeah,
and if the objective is to, you know, be competitive and be overhand serving or giving a tough serve, right? Especially now, the serve is an attack basically in volleyball, right? At all, it can be at all levels of volleyball. You see all these crazy spin serves.
It has to be.
It has to be. So take that opportunity.
And what the coach says right after say that the player is taken out of the game, that critical second of how the reaction is, of how what the I guess what is coming from coach to player when the substitution is made.
Yeah,
that's really
that's
critical.
a big moment. You're right. That's totally
whether they
a big moment.
high five, whether they give some feedback, or even the look that is given. That can be a huge.
I remember that. Yeah, for sure. Being subbed out, and it's what you see.
Right.
Yeah, I remember when I was playing my first year varsity, my captain, I was 17, so I was younger. Everybody was 19 then, and my captain was 25, and he was our setter. And, you know, setters, you know, kind of like team captains regardless. And he had the label of captain. He had the label of age. He used to make fun of how skinny I was, but I'd love to be teased like that again. But he used to, he'd like, you know, you shank a ball, right? I'm 17. I don't think they knew I was 17 because they just assumed everybody was 19, right? And he would look at me and go, come on, pass up. Terrified. I'd be so scared. I remember playing one time, and I was like, I got spun serve so hard, shank. And he looks at me and goes, come on. And I'm like, I'm trying.
Like as if you're doing it on purpose.
So I always tell people and coaches, like, you know, if you want someone to play better, don't just build them up. Because you're just going to make them terrified of the next serve. And the only thing that saved me that year, because I had a coach that was kind of buddy with him too, right?
Yeah.
And so the only thing that saved me that year was when I went home, and because I left high school early, because I was a bit of a genius. Like, I don't like to talk about that, but I was extremely, you know, like Doogie Howser for all the parents.
You don't like to talk about it?
Yes. I never. No, I left high school early, so I went to post-secondary and played university. The only thing that saved me was I came home at Christmas and practiced with these guys, and I thought I was absolute crap, right? Because my confidence was in the gutter. But then these guys said to me, "You're so good
so
now."
much better.
I was like, I am. And my chest hair grew instantly, and my muscles got bigger.
Yeah.
And then I got fat with a PH. But yeah, so that saved me. But I was around Christmas, I was almost thinking like, I don't think I like this sport anymore, you know?
I wish I did that. I don't know how much I did that where I got to come back and compare myself with my volleyball friends that I started with.
Yeah. I tell that to young players all the time. I tell them, listen, you don't feel it. I say it to my kids. You don't feel it, but you are getting so much better. I like to show our kids, like if they're playing beach twos, because they play together and they hate each other. They want to kill each other, but they do it. And when they think that they're not getting better, I go, you want to see this? And I show them the video from last summer. They're like, oh my God, we're so bad. So I always tell players, you know, you're getting better through this process. And even, you know, when you have the tough coach, there's something to be learned from that and some benefit there. But man, like if these coaches could stop worrying about the win in the moment, you know, because winning now is for your ego, right? Winning a medal is for you, coach. Your win-loss record and retaining players is about your ego. if you want players to get better, that's about them. And you know what's funny? You know what the funny thing is about all of this? If you worry about every player getting better and every player having a better mindset on the court, guess who wins at the end of the year anyway? Or at the end of those teams win. I have a great, I remember one story where I was watching my daughters in their first year club, and we were playing against another club from like a few hours away. And I could tell those coaches were like super positive, and they knew their crap because they were, this young team everybody was overhand serving, and they were missing every serve, right? And the coaches were clapping. They're like, no, keep it going. You could tell the players didn't want to overhand serve, but they're like, no, just keep it going. It's okay. It doesn't matter. They kept saying that. And so they lost that every game. And I leaned over to my wife and I said, that team's going to kill everybody by the end of the season.
Wait to the end of the season.
Yeah, and sure enough, at the end of the year, they were destroying everybody. They were the only team that were, disciplined enough to stick with a system.
Yeah.
They would lose those points because they were learning a system. They would stick with the aggressive serving mindset at a very young age, and they didn't abandon it, and they believed in it, and they kicked everybody's butt by the end of the year. And that club now that my kids are older, dominant club. Not every coach, I'm sure, at the club is in that mindset, but it seems like they are. They produce a crap ton of great players, and they're all aggressive players, right? That's the thing that coaches don't understand about, talk about coaching to where the game goes. If you're not coaching aggressively, if you're not coaching, like you said, Erik, about the serve being essentially a spike from the baseline, it's an attack to get the other team out of system or to get the team to shank the ball. You're playing side out days.
Yeah.
Side out days is to get the ball over because you can't lose the point.
Yeah.
Rally point is you gotta kill that serve. Now, not to say the jump serve is the be all end all, because you can also kill or float, but you gotta serve aggressively.
That's right.
And if you're teaching your players to just be safe, like if I hear another coach say, just get it over to a team at any age, I'm just like, what are you doing? Right? You may as well just say, I don't know, throw it over.
Yeah.
You seen that clip I sent you of Taylor Crabb when he was in high school?
Yes.
And he's like, hey, coach, can we jump serve now? And he's like, yeah, you can jump serve, but you have to get 5 float serves over in a row. And he's like, okay. Poof, 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 poof. And he's just like starts throwing up spinners, right? And then it's just like doing work in practice. And then they let him do the same thing in high school. And then I think he set most of, I think maybe 1 year in high school they let him start to get outside. It's
still kind of weird though. Like I had the coach tell my kid that too. Like, unless you can get 10 float serves over,
still weird.
It's still
well.
Weird.
That's what I mean. He put
Like,
a prerequisite before he can spin
again,
serve.
something.
But the coach had to. He's like, I have to say something. Otherwise,
no. That's one of those things we talked about earlier. That's the YouTube video. That's the thing that just becomes fact in coaches' minds, and they just mindlessly blurt that crap out.
Right.
The point is, you want every server to go back there and try to get a point off the baseline. Okay, that's it. You're trying to get every point back there. You would never tell a player at the net to just, wait to get the first 10 roll shots over before you swing. No, you would tell them to crank, right? So,
well, he gets these float serves over, and then all of a sudden, Taylor Crabb in high school, he starts doing these spin serves. The coach is like, oh man, you know what he's thinking in their own mind. They're like, I can't tell him to not jump serve now. Like this is going to be so effective. So coach is like, I guess they just probably shut up at that point.
Yeah.
They don't even tell him what kind of serve to pick.
Yep. I saw a player, a young girl spin serve. Okay, it was my daughter. See, I'm even afraid to be that parent. But she was spin serving in a tournament. She was forbidden from spin serving at age 14U, and she knows how to do it because I was a jump server my whole life, and she watched me, and I taught her how to do it. So the form wasn't bad. It wasn't like a player that's just like hacking back there. So her coach told her that she wasn't allowed to do it. And we were like, okay, you know what? Listen to your coach, right? Again, there's that whole thing where you just don't want to be that parent, right?
Yeah.
So I'm telling, listen to your coach and, whatever. And then we went to this tournament and they were playing for like 8th place against another team from the same club. So I was like, I'm sure your coach won't care. Like she couldn't care because my daughter was missing her serve at the back because she doesn't like staying on the ground. She's a beach player. And she needs to get on top of it.
Missing at the back is better than...
Yeah, and they were nice hard flat serves, but she kept missing. So I was like, I'm sure your coach won't care if you go for a spin serve in a nothing game, right? Yeah. And the coach was screaming at her to stay on the ground during her toss while she's in the air. She hits the spin serve ace, okay? So it goes back, and she's like, okay, I guess the coach won't mind now. But nope. Second serve, tosses it up, screaming, "Stay on the ground!" Hits the. I think
Another ace?
While she's serving?
While she's serving both times. But even after the ace, that's the weird thing. This is a 14-year-old, 13-year-old girl jump serving, female coach. So you're hoping that she would be empowering, and like I was excited about having my daughter.
It's not side out point. What's going on?
It's because she wasn't listening to the coach. Maybe I don't know, but it again in a nothing game. Like, what is your job?
That is what it was.
Is your job to develop,
right?
Or is your job to win? Is your job to protect your ego, or is your role to protect your ego? Is your role to empower girls to feel like I was thinking? You want a girl, especially society does enough to keep girls timid. You want to let a girl go and be aggressive, right? So, but she was yelling at her. So the second one hits the tape and roll. I think it went out of bounds by like half a foot or something. And then the coach was livid with her for doing it. And then at the end of the match, they shake hands with the other team, and the other coach goes, "Great serves, keep those up."
Yeah.
And we're like, so I think every coach I tell that story to is baffled. Every player is definitely baffled. But there are coaches who will preach that, or they'll act baffled maybe in front of you because they know that you're a player. But but then they'll go back to their gyms and they just play it safe. And it's like, where does that get you over time?
And then the other positive feedback loop and in decline is like, I had this even at
you don't have to say the place, but
no. Well, I'm just gonna say varsity,
Post-secondary,
where we're, the big objective was to, in a way, just get the serve over, right? But he was still trying to teach us but the priority wasn't on a tough serve. It was on getting the serve over or whatever, right? And then what that does is that it has a bad feedback loop where you end up getting the serve even more like timid or weak or whatever, right? And then when you miss like in a game,
can't believe that
meltdown by your coach, right? And it's just there's something about the serve in my own volleyball career because I was at least I think I was never taught to be aggressive with it. I was never taught how to have an effective spin serve. I just saw my teammates do it, so I wanted to try it. That's the most I've ever had about learning a spin serve. I've never had anyone do any technical stuff, but the aggression, and then if you're just so focused on just getting it in, you're not in that mode of I'm better with it now, obviously. But you're just not in that mode of thinking of setting your team up with a good attack, right? And then if you're timid, you're more likely to make a mistake, and then the error happens, and then the coach freaks out, and then it just goes, and it's not in a good way, right?
And keep in mind that parents as well can be an influence. You get more time with your kid than the coach does. So you're reinforcing that positive.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Mentality that is saying, replaying it back. Hey, it was great when you did this. It was great when you did that. This is the type of thing that helps reinforce when they're feeling bad, when they're not looking at what needs to be done in order to help them improve.
And then maybe that's like the volleyball parent. That's like we were saying, first generation. Well, or they didn't play volleyball, but their kid's playing volleyball. Maybe they don't have the confidence because they think they don't know the sport, so they don't feel confident telling their son or daughter to do that. Because in your case, Sue, where your daughters, you were a high level player and you raise your daughters, but you do know the game, so you're already teaching that. I remember you were teaching that when they were like 9 or whatever. Like they were even trying spinners around 10 years old, right? So. Yeah, I guess what we're trying to do here is tell parents have the confidence to.
And if I could say, parents, the more you can be at the games and record, wow,
right,
and have your kid play that stuff back. Recording is the ultimate coaching tool after everything is said and done.
Yeah.
The only case, and a lot of parents do Meach. So today, most parents are recording, or the team will record, and the parents have a copy of it or access to it. The only kicker, though, is that the parent who has the right mindset of be aggressive, and that's awesome, right? And they reinforce that. If you're dealing with a coach that punishes aggressive play, then they'll tell you to shut up. I mean, not that I don't say anything. I say parents have actually criticized me for not saying enough, and I was like, I don't talk. Like I don't care if my kids lose. I don't care or whatever. I was a worse player at their age than they are now, right? But the player that or the parent that tries to do the right mindset, they're stuck with no voice because they're afraid of looking like that parent, like we said off the top. They don't want to, you're torn between listen to your coach and, you got to be a good, team player. And, the coach must have a reason. And you just have no power. Like as a parent, you have no power. And so some parents, like their only recourse is like lose a few $1,000 and leave the club, and then they get labeled as a toxic parent, or everybody else thinks, oh my God, that entitled, right? No, it's not entitlement. And this is the other thing too. I just read a post like this last night. Like we're part of this Facebook volleyball group, and it so many of the parents are talking about how they're at wit's end. They know that they're the first ones to criticize their kid or to say if their kid shouldn't be playing. And then the coach,
the parent
is the one saying this, and they're very fair, but their kid's not getting playing time, and there's no logic in this coach. And a few of the comments are like probably coaches saying, well, it's a good lesson, and you should learn that your kid should learn that it's not fair, life isn't fair. But shouldn't the coach, like coaches are never taught this lesson, right? Like coaches are never taught that they can't be entitled. Coaches aren't taught that they can't be bullies, right? You talk about the bully parent. You talk about the entitled player, spoiled player. There's a lot of spoiled coaches that are just not, like you said before, they don't have the humility. Yeah. Right. This is all about humility, right? On every aspect, whether it's a toxic parent, not humble enough, toxic player, not humble enough, toxic coach, not humble enough. I don't mean humble like a pushover. I mean humble like if you tell me something that makes more sense, or if I have evidence to see that I am wrong, or that I should rethink this, then they'll change. I've seen coaches who don't change.
You end up learning a lot of like life philosophy by playing sport, right? So by teaching, your players to be aggressive, to go for those serves, that's something that's applicable outside of volleyball, right? It's like even in life or whatever, you don't want to sit there and be timid. You don't want your life philosophy to be just get it over the net, right?
Yes, just enough. To just get by.
Yes. Or to live reacting to life instead of creating your own, what was the word, destiny or
creating
something? Creating life.
Especially,
we're not talking about making babies. But
especially since
aren't we though?
The fact that it is a reaction, like you said, a reaction or something that you would just say, let me do enough, or let me do all that I can. That's kind of the basis of doing an aggressive serve, and it's the point where you are you decide what happens. That's probably my main point, is that you decide what happens, and you're in complete control of what happens when you're serving.
And you take the full brunt of that, whether your serve is a success or a failure or whatever, right? And then that's the feedback you need to then improve yourself. So I see what you're saying.
Right on.
But I just want to bring that up because it's like I don't just want us to just be sitting here, guys with opinions. Like I think we say this with reason, and I believe we're talking. If the coach says something, you should be able to ask them why, and they should be able to prove it, why, right? Yeah,
the logic test, right? Like everything. That's why we called it Volleyballogy too, because we're going to bring the logic behind this is that we aren't just talking about, hey, I think we should try to win by serving harder. It's more so, I think we should pass on the idea that, it's a cliche, and so many old cliches people forget about and disregard, but fortune favors the bold, right? People just say that thing or put it on a poster and they don't understand what that means. But in life, you want people to go for it. Calculated risk, right? Calculated, aggressive risk taking is a better way to live than to just cautiously seep into the world. And so many times, and this is where we'll get into parents episodes later too, but you hear so many parents talking about just get it over, or you hear that yell from the sidelines too, right? Or they're so afraid of their kid messing up. I have a funny story from yesterday if you want to hear it. Like again, one of my daughters was at this university ID camp, right? So a lot of high level players there. I kind of love this. Okay, so the coach, who was awesome, by the way, totally right mindset, told the kids that volleyball is a game of mistakes. So don't worry about mistakes. It's a high level player coach.
They said that, eh?
Yeah, well, he's a high level player himself.
Yeah.
And worked with the national team.
Yeah.
And he said, this is a game of mistakes. So forget about making mistakes. That's what I tell our young players and my kids all the time. You are going to get blocked. You are going to hit it in the net. You are going to miss your serve. You are going to shank a ball.
Yeah.
You are going to do this a lot. The key is to just move on. So he was given that lesson. And then he also said that they preach aggressive serving. That's all that matters. Their goal is to get the other team into out of system right away, get them in trouble. And that's what they do. And that's why they were such a successful team.
Yeah.
So my daughter goes back and there was this demo or sorry, not a demo. It was a drill where there was limited serving, a lot of tossing in from coaches, like various, like toss to setter, then a toss to free ball, and then they would start that 3-point sequence with a serve. So players were limited serving. So my daughter goes back to spin serve, hammers it into the back of another player at the net. And she's one of the younger players there.
Yeah.
So she was like, sorry about that, felt awful. And then, sequence goes, and then lo and behold, it's her turn to serve again. So she spin serves it into the net. And it's like, she's the only one serving on this side of the net for a while, like 2 or 3 players maybe.
Is she the only one spin serving?
She's the only one spin serving there, by the way. Everybody else is doing their jump floats. There's some aggressive ones, but nobody's spin serving. On the women's side, it tends to fizzle out of the game, right?
Yeah.
And then she goes back for her third serve, and I'm like, is she gonna stay on the ground? And she tossed it up, high spin, and nailed it. Aced it, won the drill. They won the drill.
Yeah, that's
and
huge.
I saw the assistant coach. She was also a former pro player, and she was smiling and nodding because, that is. I was very proud of that. Not just for volleyball, but that is like a life moment where your kid's like, okay, there's a right thing to do and a wrong thing to do. I had I don't even know if at her age,
I wouldn't have.
I didn't have.
I wouldn't have. I wish I would. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have her.
I wish I would now. I don't even think.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like honestly, that's how awesome that is. Yeah.
Either she's great or she's like really stupid. But but
no, she's going to university. She can't be stupid.
Yeah. Well, she's not into the university. No, this is the other one. But I mean, they're both smart and beautiful and gifted. I love them.
And they can't hear us talking.
It's not like this is going to be on the internet. Nobody's going to listen. But I just thought that was the perfect sort of. I walked away from that thinking that was pretty gutsy, and that means that she's getting it. The idea that you got to be you too. That's the other thing, right? Like she didn't change who she was in that moment. And the coach loved it, and I think the teammates loved it, and I think it took a lot of cojones to do like in that moment where you don't know anybody, and there's a lot of pressure and high level players. She's younger than most of them.
Oh my gosh, especially when it's like a tryout and you don't know anybody. That's the pressure situations that emulate the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had one other moment of that, like not to turn this, but it is kind of cool where. My older daughter, when she was young, I remember there was a coach in a tryout who my daughter was missing her overhand serve. This is when they were like 13. And the coach was saying, just underhand it to her, right? And this was a high level coach, by the way. But he was I think he just wanted the drill, or not the drill. He just, I think there's a lot of sexism, right? Like I think there's a lot of like young girl, small frame. I've had coaches say this to me. They're just not strong enough, Zuby. I'm like, it's all technique. If you're relying on strength to get your overhand serve over, and we'll talk more about this in our videos, it's technique, it's body transfer. But anyway, so my daughter looked over at him, 13-year-old girl, and says, no, I want to do overhand. And I was like, oh my God. She just said no to the guy. In tryouts, right. I want to go overhand. And then she stepped up and hammered an overhand over the net. And he just looks at her and he goes, okay. It was like, right? It was hilarious. It was good because he is a high level player. Yeah. So he maybe didn't think she was used to it, but it was pretty cool to see because that's a moment, right, where your kid, it's kind of you can see what that player has in that moment, right? And I like it when players show belief in themselves. And it's so bad when coaches stifle that belief with like, blanket rules, right?
What was he saying to her beforehand? He's giving her a choice?
Yeah, so it was a drill where there was like multiple serving rounds. So you'd like serve, get a ball, serve, get a ball, but they were doing it one at a time. By the way, like it wasn't like everybody's watching, right? So in this tryout, so he was just saying, why don't you try underhand this time, because she'd missed the 2 previous, right?
Right.
And she was like, no, I want to do overhand. And he's like, all right. And I was waiting, and I was like, oh my God. And then she got it over, and his reaction was just like, okay, I'll shut up. It was kind of good, right?
Yeah.
It was the right kind of, reaction for a coach. And
like if I put myself in his shoes, possibly what he fell under the illusion that he was trying to help them build up their confidence again by saying go underhand, which maybe you'll feel good about yourself if you get the underhand. But now that I think about it, that wouldn't work, because then the kid's like, oh, well, I can get an underhand over.
It reinforces the wrong thing.
Yeah. And if I'm thinking of my 13-year-old self, that's what I would have thought. I'd be like, well, I can get an underhand over, but I'm so focused on the overhand, right?
Yeah.
That's what I want. So,
well, and this is where we get into philosophy again, right? Like, so I always tell people, if you're drawn to the easier path, odds are it's not the right path. Right? Like our lives are filled with taking the easiest, least resistance sort of thing. Technology, convenience. But if you really think about it, none of those things are the right thing for you as a person, right?
Especially when it comes to getting better.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Like developing things.
well, sport is, like I just kind of came back to competitive twos like this summer, right? And like, I had a big, what do you call it, reintroduction to discomfort, right? I'm out there playing against like a bunch of young guys. I'm like, man, am I about to get lit up by like these 20-year-olds? And so I'm uncomfortable. And I don't know, I guess just the fact that I'm like a little bit older, it kind of lets me get through it. I just kind of sit there, I'm like, kind of believe in myself. I'm like, look, I've been doing this for 20 years with a bit of a break in there. But the discomfort never goes away.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and if the discomfort is not there, then I'm either playing intermediate volleyball like with friends or something,
Right.
or I'm not taking it very seriously or whatever. But I'll like varsity. There's always when I home game or away game, doesn't matter. There's always that initial like, you just don't know. You're nervous. You got a little bit of butterflies or whatever, and then but then nothing feels better when you like dime a pass or whatever, or make a part of a sweet play. Like
or if you dig a ball or lay one down the line, whatever it is, it has to kind of be a challenge to you and get that nervousness, so that you can say, hey, I got that nervousness and I succeeded.
Right?
Well, I think this is where the suffering of working out comes in, right? Like I always tell people that, like, working out and training is one of those things, whether you love it or hate it, it's almost more beneficial if you hate it, because, a lot of people do things to make it easier to work out, or they want something but you're not going to forget about what you're doing. If you hate doing it and you still do it, that's the training.
Legs day.
The training, what?
Legs day.
Legs day.
Yeah, leg day.
Every one of us knows.
Leg day. But I always early, like, I wish I think I didn't, that's the cruel thing about nature, right? Is that you have the wisdom of these hard things when you're older, and yet the time in which you have the opportunity to do these things, you're young, right?
That's exactly what I've been thinking right now.
Yeah. Like all of us, every player wishes they could go back and fix some of the things they used to do. Every student, by the way, so it applies to schools too, right? Like you only learn the importance of education when it's, I don't want to say too late, because you can always go back and do that hard thing later in life. But that's the cruel thing of nature, is that we wish we could go back to those young days where we were entitled, took things for granted, things were easier. But man, if you mixed in a little bit of that hard thing, this is where I think it's really important for kids today, because some of them are going to train right now and they think of it as work, and they think of it as labor, or even their practices, right? I mean, one of the greatest things I ever heard from a coach was, your practice should be the hardest thing you do always. Like your practice has to far exceed the game.
Should be.
So that whole like, oh, it's just practice, or oh, I'll play it. It's just practice. Like I saw club coaches actually like they were hitting the ball at players, and the player let it go because it was out of bounds, and the coach said, "Oh, just play it," and I was like, "So you want your players? You want your players to practice digging balls that are going out of bounds? Wonderful." But anyway, the practice it's supposed to be intense. It should be the hardest you work, and that way game day is automatic, cruise control, easy. All the scary stuff is out of control in practice. Actually, this reminds me of one thing. Sorry, Eric. You go ahead, and I'll bring up what I was going to say.
Well, I think that is something that the player themselves they do have control over. Talking about like Stoic philosophy stuff, things you do and do not have control over. That's something that maybe parents can help. Like, hey, son, daughter, whatever. Like,
Practice
we know your coach, like whatever, but you can decide how you what your attitude is
sometimes
in practice.
I will say this: there, it's so dominant that what that coach is,
right,
who they are, permeates into everything that team does. So like I've seen teams with toxic player culture, and you know what it's caused by? It's caused by different rules for different players. So there's another good coach, bad coach thing.
That's brutal.
Right? Well, like
favoritism.
So like players skip practices, right? And then if you're a player who gets limited playing
good.
time, you're never going to see the court.
Yep.
If you're the best player on the team, you're going to play all the time, even if you miss those practices. And so what happens then, the players start resenting each other.
That's not good. That happened at varsity.
Yeah, it happens everywhere. It happens in so many teams. Coaches need to understand this, that a rule is a rule for players. I mean, the greatest example, going back to Coach Karai, legendary player, when he moved into the U.S. national team, he cut the best player on that team. And he didn't do it on purpose. He didn't do it as like there are some coaches who see that and they go, I'm going to be a dick to the best player on the team, show them who's in charge. There is that coach exists at all levels, even pro sports, right? But he did it because this player wasn't working hard, didn't have the right tone. And if anybody can say it, it's Coach Karai, right, with his resume. But that's why maybe a lesser coach or a coach with his resume might have a hard time addressing that with a superstar. Yeah. But he did that. Everybody thought he was crazy. They thought he was crazy for keeping an older player on the roster in the Olympics when they never won the Olympic gold women's national team until this past Olympics. Because he had the braveness to do that. So team culture and even the practice intensity. I'll tell you right now, remember that going back to that session that our kids were at, the coaches weren't doing anything. All they did, they set up a drill with goals. Okay, there's another good coach thing. Set up your drills with goals, coaches. Coaches who just have this weird drill of like, all right, we're going to do passing, and they do it for like 45 minutes.
We're going to do butterfly for half an hour.
Yeah, and there's no target, there's no number, there's no race against the other side, there's no goal in it.
Right.
There's no intensity, right? So I see coaches do this all the time. They just go into a drill and there's no target. There's no goal.
But I've had drills where like we would, do the same thing. We did butterfly.
You want to explain butterfly to people?
Yeah, it's like you can either do it on just depending on how many people you have. It's just a serve and pass drill. It's a serve and pass to a target, and then you can even add a set to an outside attack, right? But if you have enough players, you can do it on both sides of the net. So you're just serving down the line, passing to a target. It's called
butterfly because the way people exit the court and fly around, move around.
You pass, you become target. You become target, become server. Mm-hmm. So we had a goal, but the thing is, it was the same drill for 4 months. It's the same goal.
Yes.
It was just we had to get 50 dimes or whatever, 50, and then it turned 50 3 options or 4 options, right? And then it turns into all of a sudden we're saying, that counts on like a 2, right? And so like the standards, because it's probably just lack of creativity or whatever, or oversight of the drill, or the intensity just starts to wither because
you can't
like anything. I mean, we all they say you get you're more susceptible to develop dementia later in life if you're just doing the same thing over and over again, right?
Neural pathways.
The neural pathways are not being stimulated,
And by dimes, Erik means great passes.
Yes, yes, dimes, yes.
It's tricky. We don't know how far into that we need to. Dimes means in volleyball sense is a pass that would literally fit on a dime, I guess. Is that one?
Well, and I think there's different, like you could also
drop it on a dime.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think in some coaches will they call it a 3-ball or a 4, where you have 4 options. 4 is like a perfect pass, but that's like a perfect pass. I don't know. They probably don't use that in club. Maybe they do. It's
I
probably
don't
more
hear
of a
many
varsity
people
thing.
use that stuff. Yeah.
Well, just imagine
Depends on the coach,
imagine watching pro volleyball or whatever, looking at Brazil men's team or something, and then perfect pass, and then they have left side, middle, opposite, and pipe option, or well, I
Just
guess
a
you wouldn't see, but-
perfect pass where the setter
Perfect
has
pass.
all options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then like that's where I forget what the side out percentage chance is, but like that's where you're gonna have like an 85-90%
Yeah.
chance of side out. So
Yeah. Just blockers don't know what's coming.
yeah.
And when you have this is something I'd like to really see, is that when you have a team that let's say without the full 6, okay, mixes the weaker players and the stronger players, and they have the same common goal, not only does that really help unite, but it helps bring up the level of everybody, because the strong players, they have to learn to work with the weaker ones in order to accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
The weaker ones get to play with the stronger ones in a way of not only uniting, but also learning that they can do it in that capacity, that it's a mix.
That's a great way to practice, right? The leaders, or typically the older players or whatever, or the better ones, can now develop leadership, right? And then like if one of the lower players makes a mistake, how are these the older players reacting to that, right? It's an opportunity to I don't know, like,
So you're getting that team building there, right? Like
Yes.
that's something good coaches do too, right?
Yes.
Team building.
Set those opportunities up.
yeah. Those are a lot of opportunities I had. I was typically the one who I had a lot of opportunities, not typically, but I had a lot of opportunities where I got to play up with those guys, and then it's just so good for me, but also I guess at the same time for them, they get to figure out how to integrate the younger player and show that they're a leader, or I don't know, but so much good stuff goes on in that situation.
That's right. King's Court is usually a kind of a good way to do that. Let's say, just for example,
Or Queen's Court.
yes, King's or Queen's Court, whatever you want to call it. That's a great way. It's just mixing the players so that they have their ability to play up, and to learn to respect the other players in the game, no matter what their level.
And reach a goal.
Yeah.
Yes, reach a goal.
I liked a drill where it kind of took skill wasn't as important. I remember we did this a lot at Ryerson. I friggin' loved it. It was I did not swear there, by the way.
And remember, you don't have to mention the school,
Oh yeah.
because that could,
Yeah, true.
nobody cares.
Do you want me to repeat?
No.
University, whatever. We used to do back row 3-on-3, right? Or did we do 4-on-4? It was back row 3-on-3. And so obviously your skill can definitely accelerate because it's back row. It's almost like your effort and drive and like attitude actually gives you more of an advantage, because
That's right.
if you don't pass a dime, typically you're not going to get that perfect approach. So it's a very good opportunity to get the dig up, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I love those, because we would have some guys who didn't necessarily start, who are just like, they're so amped up, because that was a good thing about that team, is that guys understood why they weren't starting, right? It was just, they're okay with that, but also they were given equal opportunity when we were majorly up on a team. They did get to play, right?
Huge.
So they appreciated that with the coaches, and then their way of giving back is in a drill like that, where all of a sudden they're put in this situation where they can use their effort and their like just attitude and have a grudge match in this reverse, right? And then there's nothing better than beating your starters in a drill like that, or like just chirping and stuff like that.
That's right.
And it's cool too, because the post-secondary model is so different than the club model. I think a coach would have to be a fool in the post-secondary model to not realize that they were building for the future. The one-year nature of club is kind of interesting, because those coaches just think about winning a medal now.
Yeah.
So they're going to play their top 6 or top 5 and, put on some crappy player as the 6 just in case.
Right.
Whereas a university coach, I think, is better at understanding, or in theory should be better, a post-secondary coach, college or university. They should be better at being like, okay, we're up by 10, we're up by 11. let's get these rookies in, let's get these younger players in, let's get their confidence up. Let's teach them how to win, teach them how to even lose, or fight through the odd close point once in a while. Right. Versus club where they never, like, I don't see that. Like, honestly, I've seen teams blowing teams out and the coach still won't put on the bench.
Yeah, dude. That's...
Either way, I don't get it. There's no logic. If your child is playing with that club, run, because I mean, there's some. I guess maybe we should get to the point where we look at like red flags, like red flags.
Yeah, we can just bang out some like
what are some red flags to look for, Meach, if you were gonna, or Erik, whoever, if there's like, what are some red flags parents could look for when it comes to club season? Let's picture this parent, okay? It's club season or even high school season. They're deciding whether or not their kid wants to play for this club, for this coach. What are some things that you can think of that maybe like one thing that you would, if you were picture your kid going out and you hear the coach talking,
to see if
you want to leave? Red flag meaning a warning sign.
So you're looking for what team you want your kid to play on, yeah. And I guess red flags is
well, or we could frame it the other way. We could say, what are some great things you would love to hear a coach say? Let's frame it maybe more positively. Right. What are some things that if you heard a coach talking, you'd want to hear, like, okay, that sounds like a good coach. Like yesterday, right. Just for example, when I was hearing that coach talk about mistakes are part of the game, and so you may as well get over them. That to me is an instant coach that understands and has played. Because that's what this all boils down to, right? There are coaches who have played. Not all great players are great coaches by any means.
Yeah, right.
But every great coach, really great coach I've met, has played at a high level. Right. Because they know where the game is going, right? And they know that there's no sense in teaching this level of volleyball. You know what I mean?
Right.
You need to coach a player. I guess this would be one of my green lights or whatever. You need to... you want a coach that is coaching players for the future, But as a parent, how many parents know what that future is, right? Unless you play.
Well, a red flag for me is how much, if you're in the gym watching your kid warm up or whatever, and they're starting the drills off or whatever, how much is this coach paying attention to the parents paying attention to the coach? You know what I mean? If this coach is way too hyper aware, I don't know. I'm just comparing... to when I was playing club, right? Like, thankfully, all of our parents, like, none of them, from my memory, were super in the coach's face, like, afterwards and beforehand. And also, my coaches didn't feel influenced by them. They were just going to do their thing, and then whether you liked it or not, and even at that time, if you had an issue with their coaching, they probably just would have been like, well, they would have heard you out, but they would have been like, look, this is what I'm doing.
I think the difference
again,
is
you have to prove why, like, right? Yeah. And so if I see a coach that's like way too aware of the parents and how they're being perceived by the parents, that's kind of a red flag for me, because it's like
they're too worried.
Yeah,
it could influence them. Maybe
red flag, maybe not red flag, but it's just something like, why? What's going on there? Right. What do they really care?
So you mean like they're influenced too much by the parents?
Yes, because then I'm thinking, like, as the season goes on, are you literally just going to be making decisions because of what
to appease the loud parent?
Yeah, because there's those certain parents that'll get closer and closer to the coach, kind of work their way in,
That's
and
true.
they want to be given favoritism or whatever, because obviously the closer you get to them, it's a natural human thing, I suppose, right? It's like, oh, I know this person, I want to help them out or whatever, but that's what you don't want.
Yes, good point.
I think you something that could be mentioned is the culture, because it's very hard to tell. Things are always decided by tryouts, of course. So when you have a tryout where you're finding a coach, you have to kind of look at, does this person support my player right from the beginning or not? Like, are they saying things, or are they doing things that would be negative if this was, 3 months down the road, 4 months down the road? You can kind of look at it and say, okay, well, because they missed, let's say they missed a particular spike, how does the coach kind of react to that?
Yeah,
right.
Is
it like, that player is no good right off the bat, or because they're looking at it, what is their effort towards towards my son, my daughter. I think that's how you can kind of look and see, is this the type of the coach that I want to continue with?
Yeah.
Are they focusing on every little mistake?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
do they see big picture?
Yes.
Right?
Do they see big picture?
Yep. I think that one thing for sure for me would be the language they use. So when they're talking, are they talking about winning games? Like especially in the junior ranks?
Yes.
Are they talking about winning games and medals and championships, or are they talking about player development? That's the big thing in sports, especially volleyball. It's like either player development or winning now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who's done high level volleyball will tell you that player development is all that matters.
Yeah, and the good coaches I had, I don't think I ever. Sorry, I totally cut you off.
Yep.
I can't remember a huge discussion about winning games.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now too, Eric. There's one problem in your experience is that I coached in your club.
Yeah.
And it was a small club.
Yeah.
And it was
small,
a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's when there was not a shortage of coaches.
Yeah.
Today, like the clubs have especially on the women's side, on the girls'
would
side.
we call that like an ideal situation that I'm always kind of comparing things to?
Well, not ideal. Like obviously there was still problems in politics and stuff, but I think that it was a little more like every coach in that club was a reasonable, like that. Back then it was like a little. Like I remember when that club asked me to coach, I felt honored. As a former player. Versus today, they would be asking anybody. And they only asked me because they saw me coach a high school team.
Yeah.
And then they asked me, and I remember thinking, wow, it's a big deal to be asked to coach club. In the 20 years since then, it's become no big deal. Like
that club's folded now anyways.
Yeah, that club's folded too. But the parents now, they might ask a volunteer parent, which is great. And it's fine. If you don't know anything about volleyball, doesn't mean you shouldn't coach. Mm-hmm. It means, though, that you should work. I was just talking with a parent yesterday who admits he was a football coach, nice guy, and he listens to everybody. And he watches YouTube videos nonstop, and he watches old matches. And I'm like, I don't know why people aren't doing that.
That's huge, yeah.
But I've seen coaches teach
old
stuff.
matches, yeah.
Yeah, just watch matches that are on TV right now. You'll see that what you're doing is totally crazy. But I don't understand why coaches aren't using YouTube as a resource just to watch games, watch the best college programs, watch the best pro programs. And young players too should. And parents, by the way, sit down with your kids, watch a match.
Yeah.
Watch beach volleyball matches.
Yeah, you should go to those before you go to these coaching.
I think so. I think, and even you can find the best. I think
you should do it this way on YouTube type stuff. Sorry, that's it.
No, that's okay. No, but that's why the best coaches in the world. I tell this to my kids when it comes to school too. Like, I mean, you can learn from your math teacher if you want. Or you can go on YouTube and find the best math teacher in the world talking about it. And same with volleyball. You can. The only problem is that coach in your world has control over your system, and that's one of the reasons why we stopped doing. Like we used to do a lot more instructional youth stuff in person, and we figured it's kind of useless because we might teach a kid positioning, and then they go back to their club coach and they're like, no, we're gonna do it like this, and you're like, okay, go ahead. And then the players sitting there more frustrated because they know how the high level players do it, and now their coach is telling them something that doesn't add up, and it doesn't work. Like again, if it worked, they would know. The players find out really fast. And here's how you measure a good coach too. Like if what they're telling you is making you better. Right? Like I've had discussions with coaches where they're giving the Kool-Aid the advice that's out there. And we talked about this with staggered foot receive, or my favorite one is like coaches who tell players to face the setter or the target on serve receive. Yeah. And I'm like, that's a coach who's never faced a spin serve down the line. Because if you're standing in 5 or the back corner
and they serve your line
and I'm facing the setter already, you don't face the setter. You get your feet squared up to where the ball's coming from, and your target, your platform ends up going towards the target, right? But I still see coaches, like 18U coaches in the club, 18-year-old players are being told, face the setter on serve receive. I'm like, that's a person who's never faced,
haven't played, and also haven't watched
or watched. Yes, or watched. Exactly. Like you can't,
because you'll see it right away.
Could you imagine?
Yeah,
I was watching one national team. It surprised me. They had like 5 passers lined up in a row and men's international play. I
thought it was 4.
I think it was
4.
It was 4, but I think it might have been 5. But even if it's 4. But honestly, I think it was as shocking as 5 because I could see the coaches' maybe logic was, okay, everybody's serving so hard now, but less is more on serve receive.
Well,
three is it.
I was talking to some people, volleyball players. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess they've been seeing it on a few pro teams. Because I brought that up when we saw it.
Yep.
When we saw it done by that one team, national team.
It might have been 5 though.
If it's 5, that's pretty alarming. 4.
But did you tell them that it was in a row, not in a cup?
I told them. Yeah, I told them in a row.
Yeah.
And they said they saw some other national team do it as well.
Yeah, I think this was 5 because it was. I've seen teams.
Okay,
yeah,
I haven't seen
I've
that.
seen 5. I think it was 5 because it was way too crowded, way too many. Like, I had I saw a coach who used to have the players pass in a V formation, and it was like everybody, like 5 passers and the 2 players standing in the backcourt middle.
So strange, yeah.
And 6 were right on the baseline, and they were like side by side. And they asked me, and I said, well, I think
from a physics point of view, why would they do that? It's the single. It comes from the same point. And
but
this
is one of those coaches, right? And then I did mention that when asked, I said, sometimes less is more with passing. And he goes, oh, but they can't even pass when I have they can't pass when I have 5 or something like that, or 4 passing.
Or 3.
Yeah, whatever. No, but I don't think he even considered 3. He was only comparing it. He thought that, they can't pass with 4, so let's go to 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a W or anything. And this is like 16U. And I said, well, don't forget the I got it, you got it thing, right? Like, if there's a lot of players and there's no clear lanes, then passing gets confused, and I just watched that team just get worse and worse every match they played. That's another red flag. If the players get worse, that's huge. I see that all the time. Players get worse through season. It's sad to watch.
Well, and how so if you're a player, you made you made your club team, high school team, or whatever. How often? I guess I'm asking you guys this. How often would you feel improvement? So if you can try to flash back to, 60 years when you guys were teenagers. I didn't even notice me say that, did you?
Was that a dig? Was that a dig? Not a volleyball dig.
How many years did you say?
If you can flash back 60 years to when you were
60 years.
teenagers.
Okay, so I was just swimming around. I don't even know if I was in the system yet.
I mean, I'm asking myself at the same time, but how often should you feel improvement?
Well,
I definitely remember having some practices where I didn't feel improvement.
I think
or you have a bad practice or something like that.
Improvement is very difficult.
It's hard,
to gauge,
especially
for the individual.
Yes, for the individual.
I'm talking about the parent watching can tell if this team looks better, or worse. It could be the other teams are getting better. But that's even a red flag, right?
Okay, but
if the other teams are getting better, and the gap is increasing between your team and their team,
right?
It could be because your players are getting worse. It could be because they're getting better. Either way, you're with the wrong team.
So the reason I asked that question is because of as a player deciding, or not, I guess it's not something you decide if you're going to respect your coach or not. One thing is that if what they're telling you does work, makes you better, then respect for them grows, right? Because it's like, oh geez, like what they're doing is working, right? So that's where that question of how often should you be feeling improvement, but I realize that's not a well framed question because sometimes you just have bad practices or something, right?
It's a very, very tough question to ask. Where you have, especially when you're looking at the beginning of a season, and if the coach is going to be looking for improvement, it's basically just an instinct sign to kind of look at what type of qualities are going to be good for future. When players don't have a lot of choice of where they can play, that makes it even tougher. So
right, and maybe choice is the big thing there. Like, say you're you're working on your forearm passing or something, and then if you're not getting any feedback from the coach and you're clearly struggling, and you're trying your best as the player, but it's not necessarily you're the player. You're there to learn, but it's not necessarily your job to break down the sport. So having a coach be like, hey, maybe try this or just change something up or something, right? And then you can at least approach this thing you're having a difficult time with in a different way, and then you'll experience the pass differently, and you'll see if it's good or bad or whatever, and then trial and error, right? So trial and error with calculated assessment.
I think that players it's not rocket science, right? Like if your passing's gotten worse,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
feel
yeah.
that if you're, and that's maybe it's because of their positional setup. Maybe it's because they're not that your skills are changing, but I've seen players get worse at hitting through the school year. It's a very concrete example, or through the club season, or through a year at university, right? And there are factors. So you can either build a player up or you can tear a player down. And I always tell this. I mean, Beach is great for this because you learn very early on that giving your partner shit is going to make them play worse.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like my scenario where I was a rookie and they were like, come on, pass up. And I was like, dropping turds on the court behind me. That's not going to make me play better. And I learned that very early on. Now, there are some players who like that, but it's pretty rare and you need to find that out. Right?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some tools maybe for teams and coaches to find that stuff out.
Yeah.
But the idea is that it's not that hard to tell if you're getting better or worse. Maybe the individual might not gauge if they're getting better, but I think they can tell if they're getting worse because of how they feel, right? Like confidence is down if you get crapped on for every mistake.
I think you're right. I think the individual can really tell because obviously,
especially worse. I think especially worse because we tend to not see the positives as humans.
Yeah.
As humans, we don't like to see positives.
Yeah.
So we only focus on negatives. Like someone could come home after a great game. I do this. You do this. You guys do this. You can come home after a great game and say, all I can remember are the 3 shanks.
Yeah.
So,
right.
We focus on the negative, right? So, but as a parent watching it, you can see, what's happening to your kid, what's happening to the team. Sorry, Meach.
If there is a coach that is bold enough to give a little tidbit, even during a tryout, that'll be a coach that will be looking towards player development.
You mean like positive?
Yeah.
Positive comments.
If they're treating that player who they may even end up cutting as if they are on the team in that moment.
Right. That's the way.
Yeah, I think that's what you're trying. Yeah. That's
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah.
Because who knows, that person might get cut, but hopefully they come back next year or something, or take it to their high school team.
Yeah, how they want to leave a person is kind of interesting, right? Like, is it about me or is it about that kid?
Well, and you said you felt it was useless doing our one-on-one, or not one-on-one, but our in-person training, because what you teach them, their high school coach or whatever is just gonna. But I'd like to believe that it wasn't a complete waste, right?
Well, it wasn't a waste, but I think it could add to the frustration of players and parents, because when they come out and they see how it's supposed to be done, and then they go back to it. That's why we're kind of doing this, right?
Right, but
we want to bring coaches, players, and parents into this circle, and it hasn't been done, right? Like coaches get their training, and they can reject it if they're, arrogant, or they can reject it if it's whoever giving it is wrong. And then kids get their training, but then what if the coaches aren't getting the same message, right? So I think that what we're hoping to provide is like a full circle here where coaches in a non-public, by the way, it's very important, right? They can do this at home. Players can do this at home on their phones, Spotify, whatever. You are now in a non-threatening environment where you can maybe change some of the things that you've been doing if they're wrong, if they're not working. And players and parents might be able to share this information, because there's a disconnect between what the coaches believe and know, or think they know, and what the parents don't know. And then if the player finds out through clinics like we give all the time, that my coach doesn't teach it like that. And there's a million people like us around the world. There's not a million, but there's a lot of organizations that are doing what we do. And the players know more than they used to. So a coach that has nothing to stand on is in trouble. And then they start doing things like, that's another red flag we didn't talk about, by the way. If a coach uses physical fitness or physical punishments, overly, not little ones, but I mean you shanked balls, you're punishing you today with physical activity. I hate that one, because that associates punishment with exercise, for one, but two, I think it's almost like stalling for the coach. I think a lot of coaches like to look tough, punishing kids with physical activity. What they really, because they're covering for the fact that they can't teach what to do right. I can't fix your passing, so you guys are just gonna do push-ups.
That's
You guys
right.
can't serve over the net. Well, then, sprints.
Gotta get
sprints.
stronger.
Like we've all had those coaches
Yes.
that punish because they can't. Oh, you said it, right? Your college coach, your varsity coach would punish, get angry, throw tantrums, but never
Yeah.
gave advice. On
Oh yeah, we
fixing.
would do yeah, serving drills, suicides.
It's a way to hide.
Yeah, yeah.
Coaches hide behind
Buy some
physical
time.
punishment. I've seen it. Like when my kids were playing soccer, I remember they had a coach didn't know anything about soccer. He made them run all practice, which you could argue helps in soccer, right? Like make it, especially soccer where you're running, but there was no development. They were like 8 years old. Like, I'm like, can't you teach them how to pass?
That happened a few
Like, I played
times.
soccer as a kid, right?
2-hour
I'd be like,
practice.
yeah. But he hid. The coach was hiding.
Yeah, I think
their
so.
lack of knowledge, because that's the shortcut to success. Or sorry, to respect. Coaches want to be respected. So if they don't know the game,
Yeah.
look for that coach that is quick to go to the physical punishment, because that means they don't have. They think about how much practice time you're wasting. Like practice time is rare for a coach with knowledge. They don't have enough time, right? Like that's why we did this show. We could talk about stuff at length, and yet they're filling up half their practice with punishments.
So what do you think about this situation where like you lose a game, right? And then the next practice, your coach carries that into practice? Because this is typically where this happened to me, is where 2-hour practice, serve for an hour and a half, for the other 30 minutes we're just doing sprints and suicides, because he's carried that loss into practice and he's like trying to teach us a lesson, I guess. Literally serving, if we can't, it's something like get 100 serves over like nonstop, and if one person misses one, you're doing lines, and so you spend the whole and then at the end of it, I'm more mad, and then I'm trying to be respectful and not lose it on my coach, because I don't want to be. And that time I was a captain.
You know what
I can't
lesson?
be.
You know what lesson he should have taught you? You know what lesson he missed? What's the most valuable lesson for a volleyball player?
Well, mistakes happen.
Mistakes happen. Get over it. Your coach
Yeah.
literally is not over it and
That's
teaching
right.
you to
He's
dwell.
carrying in it. Yeah,
He's
yeah.
teaching you to dwell, and if a player learns to dwell, they will make so many mistakes.
Yeah.
That's what I love about volleyball. I love volleyball because I taught philosophy for a long time too, and volleyball is one and done. Perspective,
Yeah.
reset. Here we go. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This whole game doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Good.
That's
You're
right.
you're just here wailing away. Play free. The players who play free win. The players who play scared or dwelling.
Yeah.
So your coach was trying to teach you a lesson when really his lesson should have been, guys, that game is over. We missed our serves. Let's get after it today. Let's be aggressive. Let's act like that didn't even happen, because how you win is by serving loose. All he's done is made sure that all the team, these are young varsity guys, that they're just going to be nervous every time they go back there to serve.
Yeah.
Well done. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So about the whole, we want to kind of create more community, between coaches, parents, players, and if a player has, say, learned something to do something one way, right? And they want to, perhaps we're now emboldening them to bring it up to their coach, right? To have the confidence to ask them. So
I don't know about that.
Oh, is that okay?
I don't think so. I don't think that's a good way to go.
Right, because that's what I was already seeing the issue with that, is that if you're having players challenge the coach like this or whatever. So what I was trying to get to is that the coach needs to be the one in not a position of authority or something, but they should in run and guard, they should be the one deciding, okay, we're going to work on passing this way, and this is why we're going to pass this way. And so if you have a player who's challenging that, being like, hey, no, I learned it this way.
No, yeah.
So that's a tough situation, right?
We're not
Because-
recommendering that players do this at all.
Okay.
So you have to
I
understand-
mistook that the wrong way.
No,
then.
What we're doing, we want the community together to learn. Like, so we want coaches to watch this. So I said privately, like they can do this in their home, because it can't happen publicly, right? You're talking about people who,
I'm talking about in the gym, in practice.
yeah, never. No. I mean, the coach has to. We're hoping the coach watches some of this stuff on their own time and sort of comes to this realization that no, it can't be learned from a parent and a player cannot go up to a coach who's like this,
Right.
and raise this,
Right.
Because you're dealing with an insecure person
And
who is trapped. Like, once something becomes dogma, then it is done. Like,
Yeah.
and if someone insecure believes something, they will never back down, right? Like you
Exactly,
have to have
yeah.
confidence
Yeah.
to back down. Like insecure people never back down when they're wrong. And I'm sorry, but coaching, and we all know this, coaching is filled. Every governing body that I've worked with knows this. Every parent and player knows this. A lot of coaches know this. The coaching is filled with insecure people. So you cannot address an insecure
Right.
person with this fact that
Certainly
they are wrong.
not on the spot.
Not on the spot.
No.
Not in person.
And this is where that amazing feeling of being a coach comes in, because of a good coach, because what's inherently happening is those players are putting their trust in you by like, even though, say, I know something, I respect this coach, right? Maybe I don't know them that well yet, but I'm going to do what I'm going to follow their instruction and run a practice this way, because I want to discover what it is they're trying to convey to me, right? And then I give them that trust, I give them my effort and dedication, and they see what happens, and then perhaps it turns out to be successful. And then for that coach, that's hugely rewarding, but it's because that player is giving you their trust, right? So that's exactly what could happen is if you flip that system upside down, where the players are now like challenging the coaches. Well, now they're not trusting them, right?
Yeah. And by the way, there are players who challenge coaches and the player doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
That happens.
Yeah.
And so the beauty of sport is that it's self-correcting, right? Sports is kind of like business, and it's like a few other things that are just absolute truths. You can either be successful or not be successful.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about, accommodations. The beauty of sport is that you will find out if the coaching information is valid or not valid really fast, right? By the level. Now it can be tricky. I call it fool's gold when people experience
the short-term success.
Success where, you're beating that team by bumping it over on one. Oh, you're beating that team by, throwing the ball over halfway. You'll get lots of medals, you'll win lots of games, but it's fool's gold, right?
But to experience this truth of sport, the player has to be willing to give their trust to the coach.
They do, and this is why it happens. This is why coaches think they trick themselves into thinking they're successful coaches because they're winning championships.
Yeah,
and the players think that the coaches. They don't know the coach isn't that bad yet because they're getting playing time.
Yeah.
They're happy. Their parents are happy and they're winning.
Yeah.
But then they find out when they hit, 16, 17, maybe 15, that, whoa, we're getting blown away and there's no answer here. Or I was taught how to do something. There's coaches who won't correct a kid's bad form. They're like, if it's getting results, don't fix the bad form. And that's true of late players. That's true of varsity, maybe varsity, maybe not even, maybe early varsity. But pro, don't touch it. Like, what do you do? But like Phil Dalhausser tosses his spin serve on the beach with the wrong hand, right?
That's not wrong.
Nobody's going to touch it. Well, no, I mean, that's what I'm saying. By traditional coaching definitions, every coach would say that's wrong. But, nobody would ever go to Phil Dalhausser. By the way, Phil, if you're watching, not that anybody's watching, you're not watching. You never, you'll never even hear of this. But
we're big fans.
Yeah. But imagine if somebody went to him, when he was 30 and said, you toss it with the wrong hand. But young players, they can get away with bad form, bad technique, still have results because they're playing against people. So,
did you? Can I?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Did you see the Atlanta AVP final? Phil did a little announcement for Nick Lucena before the final match between Brunner, Schalk, and Lotman Partain.
No,
because I'm pretty sure it was Atlanta, because Nick is. I think, was it an official announcement of retirement or something?
Oh, okay.
He did a little. I don't know if it was about retirement.
These are beach volleyball legends, by the way, in case you're wondering.
Yeah. He did
American
a little
beach volleyball legends. Yeah.
Yeah. They asked Phil to do a little. It was honestly like a minute and a half or 2 minutes. Give a little blurb about Nick, and I think they were expecting him to say some positive stuff, and he gets the mic. He's like, "So you guys are all expecting me to say some good stuff, but I'm going to do the opposite." And he gives out all these stats are hilarious. Apparently, Nick has the most red cards.
Oh yeah, he was fiery. Nick was very fiery.
I'm not sure if it was FIVB or AVP or.
Probably AVP.
Probably AVP.
Yeah. AVP loves
so the most red cards and the most back-to-back red cards. Friggin' hilarious. He's like roasting in front of everyone. It's so funny.
Nick is he's
such a quiet guy too, right? He doesn't like, and he's like, Nick doesn't like being in front of the mic. So he's like, I'm going to try and make this as awkward as possible because he's out there like right beside him, right? It was pretty funny. And then, Nick grabbed the mic or whatever afterward, and he said, thanks, Phil. And it was just, I'm pretty sure some kind of retirement announcement.
Probably, yeah, because they had that was the funny thing because Phil, everybody thought Phil was done.
Yeah.
Last year,
Yeah.
and then he came back because Nick got injured. He filled in for Nick at a tournament when Nick got injured at the start of the season. That's what brought Phil back.
Oh,
so Phil was retiring from international, but he was also retiring from AVP last year.
Isn't that hilarious? Phil fills in for Nick.
I know, and
then
that's when he played with Benesh, and Benesh is this other like 7-footer, and these two guys played on the tallest beach team ever,
right? Yeah,
and they won the tournament. And Phil was digging up. It was scary.
Yeah,
because Phil's what, 6'9"?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, six. Yeah, he's almost pushing.
Maybe 6'10". I don't know.
Yeah, 6'10", pushing 7. And he was backcourt there digging up stuff. It was the most terrifying thing I've seen in my life. As a short beach guy from we played 9x9 beach back in the day, and
who'd they serve in that Benesh Phil matchup?
I think they serve Benesh. Yeah, I mean you can't serve Phil too much, right? But Phil got a ton of kills because he was defending. I mean they split block. So
they did.
Yeah, it's just so weird for people to see Phil Dalhouser defend and dig. It was so
he's one of the best setters as well, right? So
he's one of the best setters in the world. He like models his setting after cards.
We were talking about this, Casey. We were talking about like when they lost and we don't know it was a quarter or whatever. We were thinking of what was going through Casey Patterson's mind because he wasn't having a good game.
No,
Phil wasn't having the best game either. I don't know if I can say that.
No. Nobody. They're not listening. Trust me, nobody's listening.
Because we were thinking, what's going through Casey Patterson's mind? He's like, oh man, Phil. I get to play with Phil for a second tournament, and now I'm having a bad game.
Yeah,
and
just like, a couple mistakes. Mistakes.
Exactly.
We were saying
Lotman Partain, they're like so dynamic. You have to like
they're young AVP guys that look pretty amazing.
Well, Partain is young. Lotman's 35, I think. But
is he?
Yeah. He's a former Olympian with Team USA.
Indoor.
Oh,
okay. I
played pro and stuff. I'm pretty sure. I think Paul Lotman is 35. I think so.
Oh wow.
And Partain is 20.
Was playing like he was 35. He was like so calm.
He's so fast.
Poised.
And like, these guys, basically what they're doing is they're so dynamic. And Partain is a left-handed. He plays on the right side, right? So, and Lotman is so good at passing. If someone gives him a serve that's not tough enough, he just pops up a perfect pass, perfect set. Mm-hmm. And Partain just comes flying in. And if the blocker doesn't commit with them, right, he'll just thump it. But if the blocker commits, he'll just, because he's a setter, he's so good with the ball. He just in the air fakes the attack, sets it out to Lotman. Lotman's got no block, and
jumps it on the beach.
Yeah, it's just, and like you can see them struggling with it, and like Phil and Casey, they were doing well, but I think they made a few mistakes. But even if they weren't making mistakes, it still would have been a tight game, right?
Well, you get the mistakes, or sometimes you make mistakes because the other team's doing their job and they pressure you.
Yeah,
right? So
and
that goes back to what we were talking about too, like the pressure of the moment, right? Like you could see Casey was it was, so what we were saying was he's getting to play with Phil Dalhouser, right? Like it's kind of a gift, right? You're playing with one of the legends, one of the best of all time, and
they won a tournament,
and Casey made a couple errors and clutch moments, and we both had this thought where like he's thinking,
what is he am I going to be able to play with him again?
He's never going to ask me to play again, right? So
I hope they do play together again.
Yeah, it's a good team.
Yeah,
it's a good team. Yeah, but
we totally got off track.
Yeah, no, that's okay, because it's still talking about pressure of the moment, and we do want to let people know that we are beach guys too, and we are going to talk a lot about beach and indoor, not just indoor. We just thought this was a good episode to do early for club coaching, but I think the bottom line is that we're hoping that coaches can understand that if you're not making better people and better players by the end of the season, then that's the only loss that win or loss that you need to think about. Mm-hmm. And that your job, if a coach remembers that their job is to make every player better by the end of the year, then they probably do a lot of the things that we're talking about here today. They'll put them in situations where the game is out of reach. Mm-hmm. They'll get them experience on the court. They'll let them take risks in practice. Actually, one thing I have to add before we wrap this up, stop taking stats at practice.
Ooh.
Coaches are now taking stats in practice, and they are using those stats. They're using those stats to inform who plays in games. So you got a kid now
That's brutal.
who's afraid to try things in games, and they're afraid to try things in practice.
That's right.
It's absolutely brutal.
Doesn't work that way.
That's
Yeah.
a thing. That's a thing. Like, so if you want to make so again, a coach will understand that your goal too is to make your players play as free as possible. I said this to Erik a while ago. Do you remember this? My dream scenario season, and I'll challenge any coach out there listening, not that anybody's listening, but
Yeah.
as I
No,
shout
listen.
into the abyss, if a coach started the season with the mindset that we are going to teach you to go for it, we are going to teach you to whale every great set, to go back to the serving line. I'm going to teach you good form, and you're going to go for it. You're going to pass. You're going to set with purpose. You're going to play with no fear. You make mistakes, I don't care.
Right.
We're just going to keep going, keep going. That team at the end of the season would be amazing versus all the other teams where the coaches are screaming at them for mistakes. It has to be instruction, good instruction.
Yeah, okay, that's
And
what I was
good
going to say.
form. Yeah, it has
It's
to be-
not like
no, it has to
go
be good
for
form.
it, like trying to
No,
bounce
no.
it straight down.
No, it has to
'cause
be
it's
good.
gonna
No,
block
it has
every
to be
time.
good form.
Yeah, right,
Teaching
yes.
the right things,
Right.
but then teaching them to play with no fear. That team
Yeah.
will dominate. By the
Yeah.
end, they'll lose a lot at the beginning. And that's another thing I always tell people: patience. The more we get on our phones and technology, parents can't handle watching kids fail. Coaches can't handle watching kids fail. I've talked to our own coaches in our program, like we run instructional programs, and I've taken coaches aside and said, "Why'd you mix that drill up?" And the coach will tell me, "Well, it wasn't going well. It wasn't going." So I changed. Like, they changed the drill because it was hard to watch.
They didn't sit in the awkwardness of it.
They didn't
You gotta
sit in the
s-
awkwardness.
Yeah.
They didn't let.
Right.
Like, it's hard to watch young kids play volleyball really badly, but they are having a blast. I can assure you. And you are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Your ego as
Yeah,
a
yeah,
coach,
yeah.
as a parent, as a spectator is uncomfortable with
Yeah.
this. So just let it happen.
Right.
Okay, let it happen. It's not you out there. That's what this is, right? So many coaches, they can't handle failure. Parents, they can't handle failure watching their kid play because they think it's their ego out there. It's them. It's a reflection of them. It's not. It is them going through it.
The
Right?
process.
Yeah. If we had video cameras,
The
if we had
spoils.
smartphones when you were a little punk ass kid playing volleyball somewhere, parent or coach, you were way worse. That's why I used to tell parents, like that's what I said earlier, parents would say, how can you stay so quiet while your kids are playing? Like, they're playing, like everybody's playing like crap. The whole team. I'm like, they're better than I was.
Yeah.
At 12, I didn't have, I didn't have
right.
this stuff. And I just learned by getting my ass kicked.
Yeah. That's right.
That's how
Yeah.
you get better. Get
That's
your
how you
ass
get
kicked once in a
better.
while. You get better, you fight through things, right? Nobody got their ass kicked more than Meach.
That's right. That's right. No, I agree, man. I mean, that's what I went through to be able to get better, was challenging myself and going to cities where, I don't know anybody. I went to
always
into the
nerve-wracking.
country. I went into the city and just got my ass kicked because I know, who cares. If I get ass kicked, I'm learning, I'm developing, and I'm going to be a better player because I took that challenge and I'm not afraid of looking bad.
Yeah.
I'm worried about myself getting better, and that's the only way that you can do that.
It's funny that we deny people the right to suffer. Right?
Yeah.
Well, and like, it's not like when you lose. Not when you were. What age are you talking about? What you're referring to? Like when
Last
you were
week,
in
last week.
high school.
yes, last week. Oh,
You're not
14.
Like, I think when I lose, I'm not thinking like, I'm going to be a better player because of this loss. I'm just thinking like, I'm usually thinking of the game or whatever. But the fact that you just kept yourself committed in that game, that's what's going to end up paying off without you knowing it for the next time you go out on the court.
Yes.
I don't think it's not like you lose and you're like, I'm going to be better because of this,
No,
right?
no,
You're-
it's not
right,
that.
right.
Yeah,
No,
but
no,
I know what you meant.
That's a hard lesson,
No.
especially when I was that age. I just knew I loved volleyball so
Yeah,
much.
right.
I'm now seeing that it was so good because where I am today. But you won't see that when you're.
That's exactly.
Well,
I knew that's what you're saying.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
what we were getting at too, that if he had a parent or a coach today who wasn't okay, it's not so much the player going through it. The players are happy; they're having fun, right?
Yeah.
Winning or losing, sucks, and that's okay. The problem is the external viewer of that, right? That's what we're talking about. So the coach or the player that can't handle Meach. Let's suppose Meach's parents, it's 2020 and they put, not bad year, 2021, 22, 23. Let's suppose it's the future. And Meach is put into a youth program, and his parents, who are smartphone parents and internet parents, are watching it, and Meach can't. He's not like the other kids. He's not playing well, or, oh, that was embarrassing. And then they pull him out of the program. Or Meach is afraid to meet new people. That's what we got. We had so many people, parents, that would bring kids, sign up for a program, and ask for a refund. We're like, we're fine with the refund. But so your kid's uncomfortable, right, on the court, or maybe you're uncomfortable watching them because they're no good, right? And they ask for a refund and they want to leave after one night. Oh, it happens all the time. Especially, number one thing, honestly, anxiety. Like the kid's afraid of playing, which is, like, I don't want to diminish anxiety, but... Yeah, it's kind of like the losing. How are you going to get better if you don't do it once in a while? Expose yourself to hard things, do the thing. I always used to tell parents, your kid can quit now. You could teach them that this irrational fear they have is valid. Yeah. Or you could teach them that in 2-3 weeks, they'll be laughing with some kid and they're having a blast. Yeah. And they will learn. And then you go back and remind them, remember you were afraid, right? Yeah. So that fear was irrational. What parents are doing now, and coaches sometimes, they pull kids out of those moments. They can't handle watching whatever's uncomfortable for them, and then they pull a kid, or they quit the team, or they, as a coach, they scream at the players because they can't handle watching it. So, we just got to relax as parents, just chill. Like, not everything has to happen right now. And as coaches, same thing. Be okay. I love watching coaches. You can see the teams getting their ass kicked. The kids are all laughing, and the coach is just sitting there making some notes on things they got to work on. And it's like, hey, guys, you had fun? Yeah. All right, remember last game? Here's what we're going to work on in practice, and we're going to go for it. Doesn't scream at them for mistakes. Because, again, I don't know what universe that works. I don't know what universe where, come on, play better.
Play better. That's a philosophy.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, well, come on. I had definitely in club where my coach knew I was like not focused, not doing my part.
Yes.
Probably, a higher expectation of me from like a leadership point of view.
I think I yelled at you.
Yeah, because I've definitely had coaches. One coach in particular, you guys know of, grabbed me by the ear, pulled me down because you're shorter than me.
Ooh.
No, I wouldn't say do that now. But,
no. I know you're not saying to do that. No, you're saying, though, that there is a time and place where a coach needs to.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, you definitely can't do that nowadays. But I don't know.
No, but we're not talking about. So again, we're not talking about a coach that is so don't forget, there's a coach that prepares you. Yeah. And coaches you. And then there are times where players need to be called into account. We're not talking about that coach. We're talking about the coach that screams over every mistake on the court at 12-year-old players, 13-year-old players, because they think that they're coaching professionally. I'm not talking about, like, even when you were getting that, like you were in the club system for a while. And again, you're going back to a time where your coach had credibility. Like your coach, there's this in this day and age. I'm not talking about, even if you have a great, but again, I would still say that in that time, that coach, that's not the wrong approach. That's not the right approach, right? Like, that's not going to make you play better. Like treating you like they're your mom. It's got to be that. Like, what is that? Fear? Like, oh, Erik, you better pass, or I'm going to pull your ear again. Like that's
no. It wasn't about it. She didn't, the point wasn't to inflict pain. It was just to be like, get my attention. It's not like she yanked on it super hard that it hurt. It's just because she was shorter than me.
I know, but
she's like, hey, you're not
non-player.
Non-player.
Yeah. There you go.
But what it ended up doing is maybe it's just like a guy thing at 16U. Guys are more.
Guys are dopey. Like when I coach guys, they don't listen very well. And but that's a laughing thing. That's one of those things where, okay, the guys are dopey. We're gonna have a super intense practice next time, and I'm gonna put some.
That's kind of what it was.
I'm gonna put some goals in it.
ADD and stuff, or
yes. The dopey teenage boy, and there's dopey teenage.
What you were talking about, a team that's losing but having fun, but they're still the players are delivering their level of play that the coach knows they're capable of.
That's right. Good point.
That's what I was trying to clarify.
I didn't mean laughing like we're I've
ha,
given
ha, ha,
no
like,
no
terrible
no
form.
no
No,
no
like, they're
good
trying-
point, good point.
yeah.
Yes, no, I don't
That's what I
mean
was
that.
trying to
I've
say.
seen that. I've even had that with my own daughters. We're like, we drive out 3 hours for a beach tournament,
And they're not
and
even
they're
in
goofing around laughing,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, no. Listen,
Yeah.
we didn't drive 3 hours. You guys can goof around here.
$500
Get your
on
head in
gas.
it. Get your head
No,
in
I'm just
it.
kidding.
But that's okay. So that's a mental. That's a good point. That's a mental.
That's all I was trying to
focus.
clear.
That's
clear
within
up.
their control. Yeah,
Yeah.
something within their control.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the thing where the coach just can't sit with and allow players to play free. Like if the player is scared of you, then they're not going to perform.
Yeah.
And if you make them more uptight, they'll never.
And the players shouldn't always be thinking every other thought shouldn't be about their coach.
That's
Right?
another, yeah.
You know,
What's
it's
the
like,
red flag with that?
Oh, what can I do to pass better? Oh, what does my coach think? Maybe I'll try this.
Well-
Oh, what does my coach think?
Well, how can you tell?
Terrible.
That's the worst thing. What do you
Well,
see?
yeah.
The look over, the look over at the coach after every play.
That, yeah.
I hate that, and that's my
Another red flag.
Yeah, sometimes my kids do that to me, and I'm like, no, don't. I don't care. I'm not even watching.
They look at you more than the coach.
No,
and you're
but
like, "Oh,
but
damn."
that's just because they've grown up with me and coached
Yeah,
me, and they've
yeah.
seen me play and stuff, and I sometimes they'll look at me and go, what? And I'm like, I'm not even looking at you. I'm looking 3 courts over. Like that literally happens. They're
Yeah,
like, oh, you look so angry, Dad. I'm like, I'm not even. That's just my face fat is hanging down, and I just look like this now. I'm not looking at you guys. Trust me. I could care less if you win. Like that's really what I like. Part of the process is getting my kids lost a lot on the beach. They played, they fought every turn. So their sisters, year and a half apart, hit each other's guts when they're on the court, blame each other. But that was the only thing that drove me nuts is the fight. I'm like, if you guys can't, one day you'll figure out that it's you two against that team, not you two against each other.
Yeah.
One day, and I can't wait. I'll probably be dead when it happens, but I can't wait for that day where you realize that you're actually on the same team and you're actually going to build each other up. Mm-hmm. If you crap on each other, same message, right, that we're talking about today. If you crap on each other, is that going to make your partner play better or worse? Probably worse. When you mess up, do you want your sister to say mean things to you, or like, we got
Support
this?
you.
Support. So why are you giving them crap? Like, it's not that difficult. So that was the only time I would ever get upset with them, is if they were fighting on the court, because that's a mental thing. Sort of like laughing too, right? Same thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's a mental thing within their control, and they're not really trying. But when it comes to skill, losing, I loved it when they got their ass kicked by better teams.
I do remember
that's
laughing, a lot when I was playing volleyball, like learning it, just definitely as a kid, laughing at it, getting absolutely.
That's what made
shit
me
slammed.
continue.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
I had so much fun in that moment. Those moments built for me, and I had to return to that fun.
Well, we had moments, Meach. Remember in like key games, we had huddles where we, as the team, because we didn't have a lot of coaches that knew a lot about volleyball, and they were good that way. They let us sort of take over some stuff, but we had huddles. Remember where we used to say, "Guys, we're not smiling." Like we could tell when we were going to lose big matches because we were just too tense, too serious, and we would say, "Guys, we always win." We figured that out in high school. It was pretty early, if you think about it. And we figured it out, and we used to say, "Guys, we're going to lose if we're not laughing and having fun. We're going to lose."
Yeah.
And if we're not, we had the skill behind it too, right? And so when we were loose, we knew we'd win, and when we were uptight, we knew we were going to. We lost a gold medal. We lost a gold medal match to a team that we destroyed in the semis, or earlier in the round robin, early in the day, because we were tired. We were playing. It was at home, and we just peaked. We had a really tricky semi. We had a 3-set semi that we should have won in 2, and so we came in a little tired. And we just were sitting in the huddle. Our coach knew it. We knew it. We lost because of the mindset. Because of that mindset, we were a little tight. We were just tight.
What was it? The Tokyo Olympics, France versus Russia in the gold? Was it versus Russia? It was France versus
Russia.
I think it was Russia.
Yes, I believe you're right. Yes, we could look it up, but
just the French guys were just having a blast, and like not to say
true.
The Russians, even when they are doing well, I don't think they're laughing that much just because it's like Russia or whatever. They're so serious. I don't know, but the French guys were having a blast.
Yes,
and
it's true.
Playing out of their minds. It was unreal.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was so awesome.
Doing
to
some
watch.
goofy stuff.
Yeah. They were just.
Oh, do you remember we talked about that? That was the setter's dump. Do you remember that?
He subbed Brizard. He subbed Brizard in.
Young
and
setter, Meach.
Brizard's a dynamic setter, whereas I forget the senior setter was a smaller guy. I think he was more of a positional setter.
But remember the dump?
Yeah, and he had a bunch of aces
Fifth
too,
set,
man.
was it fifth set though?
Yeah.
Like the guts he had.
We'll have to look this up.
There was
yeah,
late in match, Meach. This young setter's in, and I think it was tied. I think it had to be fifth set. I'm positive fifth set. And I think he dumped at like 13 all. It was like...
And he didn't do it. It was like
And
the
he
only
didn't do
time
all
he did the
match.
whole game.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just came out of nowhere. It was crazy.
It was really...
He was unreal that
gutsy,
match.
and then they won it.
I think it's Brizard. I think that was his name.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think maybe we should wrap this up.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm going to keep
Yeah.
rambling.
Any last thoughts about? I think we made our point. Just good coaches empower, positivity, focus on development of player, and keeping them in the game. Right, that's a big one. Kids check out.
Yeah.
You don't want your players checking out on you mentally because they don't think you like them or you care for them.
Yeah, like we were saying, we had a blast, right? Like that was huge. That's what made me switch. I was a hardcore hockey player for 16 years, and I literally left competitive high level hockey, got into volleyball, and I obviously started not at the highest level, but
Plus, you couldn't skate. Remember?
oh shit. That's the main reason why I did play hockey. It was because I could skate and terrible handling skills. I was a defender. Yeah, but
Just kidding.
yeah, it was because it was more fun. More fun. So
Yeah, it's true. And when I wanted to quit in my life, it was because I had it was rookie year, not having fun. I remember that feeling. And,
Right,
and it was
right.
not a supportive environment, and I stayed with it, and luckily that was that's why I'm here right now doing this.
there's going to be a part 2 to this, probably.
A part 2.
Well, of,
follow
like,
up. Yeah.
like
Well,
good,
is there more
bad.
stuff? Is there more stuff? You know what I'm saying?
Probably.
Yeah.
Well,
It'll come
I
up.
don't know. I think so.
I think it'll come up a lot in the
Um,
show. I mean, this is our first episode, so we hope people got some value from it.
Yeah.
But, Meach, anything you want to sum up?
Just the fact that development is really going to be what you're looking at for, is a coach going to be valuable for the future for your particular kid?
So what
are
to
they
look
working on development, or are they working on just the now?
And Meach, can I hear your voice closer to the mic just once in this podcast? Want to hear?
I knew you would ask, just because my voice
Oh.
is so sexy.
We're
but,
gonna get requests for this now. It sounds so much better.
there's going to be
Yeah, I think
there's
we're
going
gonna
to
have
be
to
more
get
to
him to-
come.
Okay.
More to come. Okay.
I don't know what that.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
like the way that
Has
was
no
said.
idea.
I don't like the way that was said, or the word. I don't like the word choice, and I don't like the way it was said.
Well, you wouldn't, but my lady fans. That's all that matters.
Just thankfully, there's nobody hearing this.
Yeah.
Nobody will hear this ever. All right, guys. So that's it. I think it was a good first episode, and lots
Yeah,
more to
yeah.
come. So people, hopefully you can hear this on Spotify and YouTube. It'll be a video podcast. Obviously, it'll be up there. So hopefully you enjoy it, and watch for other training videos and more of these episodes because we've got a lot more rambling to do.
Yeah.
And it's all free.
And it's all free.
So yeah. All right, guys. Good job.
Okay, cool.
All right.
See you next week.
What's the big idea?